Kansas City Buffalo ends in controversy. Patrick Mahomes was not happy after this Travis Kelce backwards pass to Kadarius Toney touchdown was called back due to offensive offsides on Kadarius Toney. He embarrassed himself. Quote from Stephen A. Smith. He's disappointed with Patrick Mahomes. This is ESPN First Take. Let's see what they got to say.
AC was set to erupt when Travis Kelce caught a Patrick Mahomes pass and threw a backward pass to Kadarius Toney for what appeared to be a touchdown until the penalty was announced. Toney had lined up offside.
What a play from Travis Kelce,
having a lead, the Chiefs
like
suffered
unreal
their
to even have that kind of
this
awareness.
time to Buffalo. Here's Mahomes and Reed.
So this is the play. Yep.
I've played 7 years, never had offensive offsides called. I mean, that's elementary school. We talk about. I mean, you point to the ref, do all that different type of stuff, and it doesn't get called. And if it does, they warn you. And there was no warning throughout the entire game. And then you wait till there's a minute left in the game to make a call like that. It's tough, man.
So I mean, this is kind of a bigger discussion. I've kind of hinted at this before, where we want the game to be refereed or officiated appropriately, but I don't think people want it to be refereed 100%. Like if the basketball is 20 millimeters, out of bounds, and it takes away from an incredible moment, do people really want that, or do we want to err on the side of call the penalty if it's really affecting the game, but if it doesn't affect the game, and do we want the officials to really have their hands on every play and every game? This is a good example of that. Was Kadarius Toney offsides? Absolutely. He was offsides. Did it matter? Probably not. Do you have to call it? Should you call it? Yes, I guess, but I can definitely see where Mahomes is coming from. Like, look, it didn't matter. We lose the game. We lose a moment because of that, because of this juvenile or school, kind of schoolyard penalty, something you don't see in today's game. I think he even talks about it where, you point at the refs, you check with them, whatever. There's usually a warning, but to just throw the flag with a minute left in that situation, you kind of want the refs to, especially in like a minute left or 30 seconds left in basketball situation, you do kind of want the refs to swallow the whistle. You do kind of want them to let the players play, let the game play, versus really having like a true impact on the game.
It's lost for words, man. It's tough because regardless if we win or lose, man, just for it to end with another game and we're talking about the refs, man, it's just not what we want for the NFL and for football. For him to throw that flag, no explanation, no anything, and I saw the picture, and he probably is, barely offsides, but for him to take the game into his hands over a call like that doesn't affect the play at all, didn't affect anything. It's just tough, man. And like I said, man, that's a Hall of Fame tight end making a Hall of Fame play that won't be shown because we threw a flag for an offensive offsides. And so it takes away from not only this game and this season, but from a legendary career that Travis has had. And that hurts me because I know how hard he works for it.
That is, like, again, this is a complex issue because on one hand, if you look at it just by the letter, yeah, it should be called, right? He's offsides. It's against the rules. Throw the flag. The referee, and here's something else that you got to factor in. When the referee throws the flag, he doesn't know that it's about to be a legendary, historic, Hall of Fame level play from a Hall of Fame level tight end or whatever. You see it in the video. The flag goes up immediately, right? He's lined up offsides. They snap it. He throws it. It is what it is. It could be an incomplete pass. If it's an incomplete pass, is Patrick Mahomes screaming about how there was an offensive, there was an offsides? No. He's screaming about this because of the result of the play. I don't think you can ref per results. You can't throw a flag, watch the play happen, and then say, well, that was sweet. That play was pretty dope. Maybe I shouldn't have. You know what? Never mind. That was cool. I want to make sure we're able to clip that, put that on the NFL social media pages. So let's just let that stand. You wouldn't want that either. You wouldn't want flags to be subjective per what happens, right? Like if you're the Bills, you don't want there to be a flag and then have a deliberation from the referees of how cool the situation was, and then they let that happen. So I understand what Patrick Mahomes is saying, but what he's talking about is a much more slippery slope than telling the refs, like, hey, just call the game. Just call the game to the letter. Now, if it's something where Kadarius Toney was doing that all game long and it wasn't getting called, and then you decide to throw it there, I can see where it's like, okay, what's going on here? But if that's, just calling the game to the letter, calling the game to the rule, I think that's probably okay for the officials to do that.
Normally I get a warning before something like that happens in a big game. A bit embarrassing in the National Football League for that to take place. I've been in the league a long time, and I haven't had one like that.
Can't wait to break this down. So Mahomes thought he was barely offside.
Okay, so here we go on the head ref, Carl Cheffers. Ultimately, if they look for alignment advice, certainly we're going to give it to them, but ultimately they are responsible for wherever they line up, and certainly no warning is required, especially if they are lined up so far offsides where they're actually blocking our view of the ball. So we would give them some sort of warning if it was anywhere close, but this is particular one is beyond a warning. Yeah, hey, look, he's offsides. He is right. He's over the ball. I mean, you can't even, when you saw the image of the play or the video of the play, he is, you cannot see the center because Kadarius Toney's offsides.
Head referee Carl Cheffers didn't see it that way. He said after the game, ultimately, if they look for alignment advice, certainly we're going to give it to them, but ultimately they're responsible for wherever they line up, and certainly no warning is required, especially if they're lined up so far offsides where they're actually blocking our view of the ball.
Yeah.
So we would give them sort of a warning if it was anywhere close, but this particular one is beyond a warning. All right, heck of a day of football yesterday. Stephen A., does Mahomes have the right to be that upset?
No, he does not. Listen, I'm with 2 Super Bowl champions and a Hall of Famer. I will always defer to y'all when it comes to football, but as a spectator who's covered sports for 30 years now, let me tell you this. It's the first time in his career I've seen him embarrass himself. I've known Andy Reid.
I'm more surprised with the doubling down on this. I'm not surprised that Patrick Mahomes was that upset in real time. It happens. You're a player. You're frustrated. I totally get that. But after seeing the play, I'm surprised he hits the podium and he's like, this is ridiculous. Don't call the play. And don't call the penalty. I'm even more surprised at Andy Reid. I'm more surprised Andy Reid saw that and said, this is embarrassing. This is a joke. This shouldn't happen. In the moment, I get it. But after seeing it, I'm surprised that they could come out and be this adamant that it should not have been called.
Since the 90s, when I was working for the Philadelphia Inquirer, who is a Hall of Fame coach. Yep. Outside of Bill Belichick, can we definitively look at anybody in the modern day coaching or fraternity that we can say is better or has a better resume?
No, I think Andy Reid's probably number 2. Yeah.
I've never seen them embarrass themselves until yesterday. Your receiver lined up offside. Period.
Yeah.
Period. Now, we don't even have to get into the fact that the dropped passes by receivers have now elevated to 33. 33 dropped passes by Kansas City receivers this year. We could sit up there and say that. By the way, Kadarius Toney, not only was he offsides, but then he was the one that Travis Kelce lateraled the ball to that ran it in for the touchdown, okay? And then, by the way, he also had a drop earlier in the game. Yep. And so you got a drop pass. You lined up offsides. Andy Reid, an offensive genius, okay, proving it, okay. I understand Eric Bieniemy is out, but we all know that Andy Reid knows what the hell he's doing when it comes to calling plays and running an offense, patrolling an offense. We get where we're coming from. Why the hell are these receivers this bad?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question here is, like, if you're Kadarius Toney, what are you doing? Why are you, like, Patrick Mahomes was talking about how, like, that's an elementary thing. They practice that. You never see it called. You want to know why you don't see it called? Because these are all NFL players. These are all professionals. These are all, like, the highest level of player. So why is Kadarius Toney lined up as a defensive end? Why is his foot past the ball? Like, he's looking at the ball. At this point right here, you don't think he's thinking, like, man, maybe I should step back a little bit here.
There is no way around it. Everywhere you turn collectively, guys are dropping passes. You guys know this better than me. They're not on the same page with Mahomes in terms of running routes. We've got Patrick Mahomes right here, guys. This dude is averaging a career low 261.4 passing yards per game, which ranks 9th in the National Football League. Last year, he was at 308.8. Yeah. A precipitous drop-off. We know for a fact that's not because Patrick Mahomes ain't throwing the football. Right. It's because they ain't catching it. They ain't catching it.
We've talked at length about how bad these receivers are. We talked about at length that the Chiefs can't win the AFC with these receivers. We've talked about that they can't win the Super Bowl with these receivers. And now they've lost 5 games. So, yeah, you can't win. Like, they asked Patrick Mahomes to do too much. They asked him to take a horrific group of quarterbacks, or wide receivers. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster from last year looks like Randy Moss compared to Kadarius Toney.
And so you're not catching the football, you're running wrong routes, and on top of it all, now you can't even line up accurately. You know this if you Andy Reid. You know this if you Patrick Mahomes. And you losing it because the officials made the call. They were in a position to make the calls because your receivers keep messing up.
Yeah.
And so for them to react the way that they did, Patrick Mahomes, I give somewhat of a pass because it was in the moment on the field.
It was on the field, but it wasn't after he sees the picture. He saw the image. And this is something too where it's not a subjective penalty. This isn't like holding. This isn't something like that where you know how you could call it holding on every play, that old adage or whatever. This is real simple for the ref. That guy is lined up 2 feet off sides. He is over the line. He's basically in the defensive side. I don't have a choice but to throw it. You know, this isn't a thing where you can look at it and be like, okay, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. He was. It snapped. He throws the flag. All the stuff that happens after the flag is thrown, it cannot be factored in to the actual play.
But for Andy Reid to be the experienced head coach that he is, a champion, okay?
Yeah.
And then to turn around after a 10-minute break or whatever it is and walk into a press conference and talk about how the league and the officials should be ashamed of themselves. Come on, man. You got 2 eyes and you're too brilliant of a coach to not know that your receivers, once again, let you down.
Therein lies the problem. Nobody has yet to hold Kadarius Toney responsible. There's a reason why the New York Football Giants gave up on a first-round pick.
Maybe Andy Reid is saying, you know what? I'm going to take some heat off of Kadarius Toney. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to take the fine. I'm going to take the penalty, whatever. And I'm going to say that the referees screwed the pooch. Maybe that's what Andy Reid's doing. And maybe he knows. Like, yeah, I mean, you know, I don't really believe this, but the only other option is to put the blame on my player. Kadarius Toney's confidence is already probably shaken. I got to try and maybe this is a Andy Reid kind of being a man manager here. Maybe he's playing 7D chess. Play, I think is easy. You got to throw the flag, sure. But where do you kind of fall on this? Do you fall on, yep, got to call it to the letter? Do you think that some penalties, like, maybe swallow the whistle, maybe as the game is tight, kind of ease up on like pass interference, ease up on holding, ease up on that kind of stuff? Or do you want it to just be refed 100% the whole time? Interesting conversation. You know, I think, again, let's not argue about this one play. He was offsides, very offsides, should have been called, no doubt. But just a bigger conversation. What do you prefer as a fan? How the game is refereed in these like high profile, high leverage spots? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.